Thank you all for coming. And tonight, what we're going to talk about today for you guys, sorry. We're going to talk I'll start. Last week, we spoke about Shaul and the build up of his reign, his solidification of his malchut. And this week, we're going to talk about his downfall, essentially. So just to sum up, we saw, and I mean, I'll mention it a little bit here and there, but we saw that at the end of last week's class, basically Shaul was loved by the people. Everyone was so excited. Everyone was happy for him to be king. He had a huge victory against Ammon. He was at a super high at that point. And in this lesson tonight, what I want to do here, I'll share the screen so you'll see. But this lesson, what I want to do is a couple things, but I want to go through two wars that Shaul has. He has a war with the Plishtim, and when he has a war with the Plishtim, we're going to see there's an incident in the Gilgal, what happens, that he doesn't wait, and we'll see what goes on there. And then we're going to talk about the war with Amalek, and then his passivity versus his assertion, and his contrast to his son, Yonatan. Okay, so we're going to talk basically about all these different things and sum them up, how essentially all these things cause Shaul to basically lose his monarchy. Okay, so a little background just for a second is that in the time of Shaul and even before, again, I'm just noticing this theme. We're going to see this through the time of David a little bit. Is that in the time of the Yoshua and the Shoftim, there was conquering. In the time of Yoshua, and then at the time of the Shoftim, they were still had enemies in the land that were causing them problems. And even towards the end of the Shoftim and the beginning of Shaul and David's reign, the two first kings, they're dealing a lot with internal enemies, more Shaul than David, and then David deals a lot with also the external enemies to solidify, to secure the land. So Shaul is dealing with an internal enemy here, the Plishtim. And basically what's been happening, if you're part of the Israel at this point, is Plishtim are living in modern day Gaza area, like by the coast, and they're basically terrorizing Israel. They're controlling them. They controlled a lot of the agricultural infrastructure. We're going to see in the war, it talks about how there was not a lot of weapons on the side of Bnei Israel. And the reason for that was that the Plishtim controlled all the sharpening devices for the agricultural tools. Hence also not being able to have spears or knives or swords or anything like that for fighting. So there was very limited weapons, which was going to come up again in a little bit about that in the war. But basically, this is the background we're at. So now Shaul comes in as king. He has a victory against Ammon that we spoke about last week. And what he starts to do is what any king, not any king, but what many rulers would do is they're going to create a standing army. They're going to solidify their nation, and they're going to try to get rid of any problems that they have. So he does that. He gathers an army, and he starts basically a rebellion against the Plishtim. And what happens is that we're going to see here is that it's not such a simple war. We're going to see that the Plishtim have a major advantage. They have cavalry, they have more weapons, they have more people, they have everything that looks like we're going to lose. And as we know, a war fought by Israel, as we see throughout Tanakh, the common theme is it's not about people, amount of people or amount of weapons or physical or military strength. It's about the connection and trust we have in God and him helping us and relationship. Okay, so we're going to see that this is going to be a theme throughout the wars of Shaul and David and all the kings. But the people are very afraid because the people wanted a king to fight the wars, and now they're seeing that they're really at a loss here. Like it doesn't look like they're going to win, and the people start running away. They start getting scared, and what happens is Shaul. Before, this is a few parakim back already, when he met Shmuel, and Shmuel anointed him as king, he told him, here I have, this is, as you see, it's a split screen, so everyone looking at the screen. This side is what Shmuel told Shaul, and this side is what happened. So we're going to see that in this war, which I gave in this war, there's a rebellion, everyone's getting scared, and they start hiding. The morale is starting to get low. The people are very afraid. And Shaul is in the Gilgal, and we see that he's there, and he remembers what Shmuel told him a little while back, where he told him, you're going to go wait in the Gilgal. I'm going to go to you. So you wait there for 7 days. I'm going to come join you in the Gilgal, and we're going to do korbanot, zvachim shlamim. We're going to sacrifice this to God, and wait there for me to give you further instructions, basically, right? So now this is when it's happening. This is what he was talking about, Shmuel. And now Shaul's in the Gilgal, and even militarily, I didn't bring a map, but this is not, according to where the Plishtim were and where Bnei Israel was, this was not a strategic place to be. So this was essentially, this whole thing, the Hachamim say, was essentially a test of Shaul, for Shaul, to see if he's going to believe in the connection with God and not the military strength, because this is not militarily advantageous, and waiting is also not to his advantage. So this is sort of a test to Shaul to see if he will have the patience to be able to trust in God. Okay, so now he's waiting the 7 days, right? So now he's waiting the 7 days. Shmuel's not there, and the nation is like on him, right? They're jumping him. They're like, we need to do something. The war is getting bad. We need to defend ourselves, run away. Something has to happen. And we see that, I'm imagining here a little bit, is that this whole week, this whole 7 days that they're waiting, the tension of the nation is on high alert. They're like super stressed out. And I feel like Shaul keeps saying, don't worry about it. Don't worry. Shmuel's coming. We have to trust in Shmuel. And then I feel like, well, we don't know the exact timing of it all, minute by minute, but it sort of feels like that minute it's the 7th day. I feel like, when you're excited for something, you wake up in the morning early. So they're all like, okay, it's the 7th day. Now what? And instead of standing strong in his authority, Shaul instead succumbs to the fear of the nation, and he starts doing the olot and the shlamim without Shmuel being there. Okay, so this is like he's very nervous, Shaul, right? He's not really, we saw before also, he's not really so secure in his malchut. We're going to see that a lot of the problems, we're going to see a theme here, that a lot of the downfall of Shaul is his lack of confidence in himself and in his abilities. Okay, so let's see what happens. Shmuel, he does the korbanot, and then the minute, like vahi chachalot la'alot ha'olot here in the middle here, hine Shmuel ba vayotze Shaul lekrato levarcho. So now, before we see what happens, just imagine the scene right now, right? The nation is stressed out. Shaul is stressed out. He finally says, the 7 days are up. I did what I needed to do. Shmuel said to wait for 7 days. I checked it off my list. Granted, he didn't follow the part. I don't know what just happened here. Sorry. Granted, he didn't follow the part to wait with Shmuel, but he feels like he sort of did his due, paid his dues. And then Shmuel, the minute he starts the process, he does the korbanot, Shmuel walks in. Now, if I was Shaul, I don't know, actually, I can't say if, but like you would think in a way that Shaul might feel a little bad. He might be embarrassed. Oh no, I didn't wait. But Shaul goes out to, it says, he's running out to greet him. He's all excited. And Shmuel says, right? Like, what did you do? I see, he obviously saw the sacrifices being done. And he says, what did you do here? Like, what's going on? How did you, and he goes, no, and Shaul, we're going to see also a common theme of Shaul is he's very quick to blame others. He does not take responsibility. So Shmuel says, what happened here? What's going on? And Shaul says, the nation was jumping on me. They were getting all nervous. We needed to start the war, and I couldn't go out. And the time sorry, and the time came that you were supposed to be here and you weren't here, right? The days, it says, and you didn't come, like he's first of all, he blames the nation, right? The nation was on top of me. And the Plishtim are gathering around me, and you didn't come. So you get like 3 excuses. And how can I go? He's saying, I'm going to go now, go fight the Plishtim, and I'm not going to, grace the face of God, meaning do a korban for God. And and I couldn't wait, and I gave the korban. And he gives this whole lengthy explanation. He's explaining himself, and it seems like he doesn't have any, he's totally justifying, he's totally feeling fine in what he did. He doesn't feel a need to even say sorry, to even say, oh, I did. He just sort of says, that's it. And he thinks he's okay. Now Shmuel does not, right? Shmuel does not think this is okay. And Shmuel says, Niskalta lo shamarta et mitzvat Hashem. You did something very stupid. You did not listen to what God said. God wanted to have you as king forever, meaning through your descendants as well. And vata mamachtecha lo takum bikesh Adonai lo ish kelvavo vaytzaveu Adonai lenagid alamo ki lo shamarta et asher tziva Adonai. So Shmuel says, you messed up. You messed up. You did not listen to God's commandments. You had this potential to be king forever, meaning through your descendants, and instead you messed it up. God is going to pick someone else that listens to him. And now we see that this is end of discussion, because right after this, they continue with the war. So we're going to come back to this about how he essentially loses the malchut here, but we're going to come back to it later when he officially loses the malchut later, and we'll connect the 2 instances. But basically here, the theme that we see, which we'll continue to see throughout this war and the next, Shaul does not believe in his own assertion and his own authority. He is afraid of the people. He does not trust that God is going to help them in the war. He's very scared of the actual military situation, and he makes excuses for himself. Okay, so now also, by the way, there's a lot of, I'm not going to go so into it. I'm just going to touch upon it because it's a little bit tangential, but just I thought it was something interesting to touch upon. If anyone noticed, the story has a lot of similarities to the story of Chet HaEgel. So I'll talk about it for a second and bring some ideas, but I don't want to go too deep into it because it's not really the focus of tonight. But it's just interesting to note that a similar thing happened. Moshe, in Chet HaEgel, Moshe tells the people 40 days. The minute that 40 days comes, they run to Aharon, who's the leader at the time there, while Moshe is up on Har Sinai. They jump on him and get him crazy, and he makes the egel. Moshe comes down. What did you do? And made the egel, and it's the whole thing, right? And God did not. So the same theme here is that we see it's not necessarily the action that's the problem, because he was supposed to be doing korbanot. It's the fact that you didn't keep your word and you didn't have your faith in God and commitment to his word and his connection to you. So we see this is where we're at now with the war. Then we jump forward, and I didn't say yes. So excuses. Ra'iti ki nafata amalai, atalo bata, and Plishtim nesfil. Right, he makes his excuses. Those are psukim. Now we see right after this, he gets rebuked, and we see he's sort of frozen, Shaul. Right, we see there's going to be a balance here of Shaul, not a balance, back and forth. Sorry, not a balance, a back and forth, a ping pong almost of Shaul being passive and then being ineffectively active. Okay, so we'll see what I mean by that in a second. So before he was just he was ineffectively active, right? He was active, but it wasn't the right action that he should have taken because he did the korbanot not at the right time. Now he becomes passive. So now Shaul is sitting under the tree, right? He's not doing anything, and his armies with him is a small army, about 600 people, which is a small army. Then we see, in contrast to this, Vayi hayom vayomer Yonatan ben Shaul. So Yonatan, the son of Shaul, who we'll talk about him a lot. He's actually one of my favorite people in the whole book because I think he's partially tragic, partially heroic. I just think Yonatan is Shaul's son. Let me talk about him for a second, and then we'll jump into the psukim about him. Yonatan is Shaul's oldest son. He is the one who should be king when after Shaul dies. He's the heir apparent. And we see throughout his life and his what he does in his life is that he really is in so many ways an ideal king, as opposed like all the faults of his father, he has as strengths. Okay, so we see that it's almost so tragic in a way that he was not able to be king, even though David HaMelech was king and he has all his great things as well, which we'll talk about when we get to him. But I always felt like Yonatan, he misses out on such potential because of his father's failings and not his own doing, right? He's a product, unfortunately, not a product, but it's a result of his father's misdeeds and not his own, that he doesn't get to rise to full power. But we see he does not feel this. We'll see through his life and his relationship with his father versus David, which we'll talk about later when we talk about David, but just jumping in on him. So what does he do? He cannot handle his father's passivity. And he says to his Na'ad, right? We spoke about how any important person had a Na'ad, had a servant or someone in waiting, so to speak, that would help them. And he has this person, and he comes and he says, he said, we're gonna go into the camp of the Plishtim. We're gonna go fight the Plishtim. And he didn't tell his father. Okay, so he didn't tell his father is the narrator sort of telling us, because we need to know that Shaul didn't know because of what's going to happen later in the story. But it's also an interesting thing to realize about their relationship is they have a little bit of a shaky relationship, or not necessarily shaky, but we see their relationship is not necessarily so close of a father and son. There is a little bit of a rift between their relationship. They're not so open with each other, and we're going to see later how that continues. And it sort of explains what happens with his relationship with David and how he moves forward there. So Yonatan goes, and when his father is passive, he is active. He has total faith in God. He does not care if there are a lot of people or not. And he says, God's going to save us. And he tells his Na'ad, we see he's a man of action, Yonatan, right? A man of action and a man of faith. Not even faith, but a man of commitment to God, okay? So he tells his Nosei Kelav, let's go to the Plishtim, and he calls them Arelim, the uncircumcised. We're going to see this term Arelim is used as a insult to the Plishtim a lot. And so he's using a derogatory term. He's saying, let's go get these guys. They're lowlifes. They're nothing. He says, maybe God could help us win against the Plishtim, because who's God? He's God. What does it matter to God if we're a lot or a little? And he has full faith in God and his ability to help him win the war. So he goes and he says, before this, he makes a sign. Okay, Yonatan makes a sign, and he says, I'm going to call out, we're going to show ourselves to the Plishtim. He comes to show them, to see that they're reaching the camp. And he says, if they see us and they say, we will come to you, that means that it's bad and we're going to lose and we should run away. But if they say, come to us, that means we're going to win and God's going to help us defeat them. And they do say, come to us. And this was sort of a military strategy, because he knew that if they didn't feel confident, they wouldn't want to invite them up. If they thought it was an ambush, they would want to come to be the ones going and not telling them to come. When they're telling them to come up militarily, it's very confident, because it's saying, I have enough confidence that you're going to come to my camp and I'm going to be able to defend myself. But this is not the case. They attack, they do a surprise attack. It becomes a whole they call it a mehumah. It becomes all craziness, and they're all stabbing each other, right? They all start killing each other. There's mayhem in the camp of the Plishtim. And again, Yonatan, it says, Vayoshia Hashem Vayomahu et Israel, right? God's saving it, right? Yonatan keeps saying God's going to save us, and God does save them. So now it's sort of like a split screen what's going on now, because we left Shaul sitting and in the camp, being inactive. Yonatan leaves the camp. He does this whole ambush. And imagining like what's going on is the scene is Shaul is sitting with the people in his camp, and he sees this mayhem, all this chaos going on in the camp of the police team, and he says, "What's going on?" So now we see that we saw this before. It was mentioned, but I didn't say it. Sorry. The Urim V'Tumim was in the ephod. Sorry, the ephod, the Urim V'Tumim. They would be able to ask God. The Kohen war was in the camp, and they were able to connect to God and ask. They were able to ask God, and he doesn't ask God before the Shaul. He sort of takes his own initiative, which is part of the problem as well. He has the ability to connect to God, and he doesn't. And then when he sees this craziness going on in the camp, he says, get the I don't know what this means. Sorry. No, how do I cancel this? No. Sorry. Okay. Oh my God, Yosef! Sorry, 1 second. Okay. Yosef, so could you come here a second? Oh, sorry. 1 second. I don't know why this, I don't know if you see this, but sorry.
What happened?
There's some pop-up here that I can't move. Okay. Whatever, I moved it. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Basically, sorry, I'm on a different computer and it just makes me feel like I can't do anything. My computer is broken, but okay. Anyway, okay. So he calls Urim V'Tumim, and he that the Aaron to ask, and he says to the Kohen, start asking what to do. And as he sees that there's more chaos in the camp, he says, forget it, esof yadecha. It says, stop using your hands, stop asking God, and he gathers the nation to go to the war. So again, we see that Shaul is getting militarily swayed and by the people and not by his connection to God. Okay, now we see again this flip-flop between action and passive. And he then goes, after his passivity, he goes to action, and they start winning the war, right? And then in the middle of the war, he tells the people, no one should eat now. He said, you cannot eat till the night, and it doesn't really seem like such a smart reasoning to not eat while you're in war, if you're tired, if you're exhausted, all these things. But some Hachamim say he was trying to have them be focused on the war. But we see this is not a good thing, because they walk into the forest, and there's honey, and Yonatan, who did not hear this because he was already fighting, he eats and he gets this. It says he takes his stick and he gets the honey, and he it says that his eyes illuminate, like he gets this surge of strength. And he's telling the people, like, this is essentially a stupid thing that my father told you to do. Again, we see this conflict between him and his father, and he tells them, look, I ate and I have so much strength to kill more people, to be even more powerful in the war. This is ridiculous. They don't listen. And the nation, they win the war, they win the battle, they do great. But what happens is that night, after they fight, the nation is so starving that they take all the spoils, the son of the bakat, and they kill them and they eat them al hadam, right? They don't take the blood out. They're eating them prematurely, and you can't eat blood in the animal. And they tell them, and they were so hungry that they did this avera of eating al hadam. So it was obviously something that was not, is showing us by the response that Shaul did not make a good decision. And then Shaul ends up controlling the nation. He does take initiative. He is able to control them. He gets them to make korbanot and to calm down and slow down and eat not al hadam and move forward. But then they see that they lose. And where is it? And they see what happened. And it says, what happened that Hashem didn't help us in this? Oh, sorry, where is it? And they see that, where is it? 1 second. That Yonatan is the one that broke the shvuah, and that's why it was bad. So Shaul says, oh, okay, we have to kill Yonatan. Like he's jumping to kill his son because of that. And he says, then the people say, no, we're not going to do anything to Jonathan because God helped us win this war of the Plishtim, and this is a precedent that Shaul had with Ammon when he said not to kill the people, the Bnei Belial, after the war of Ammon. Okay, and sorry, this is after. Okay, so basically, to sum up here with this war, because we're going to move on to the next war, is we see Shaul does not have patience. He has a lack of, he jumps from passive to ineffectively active, and he is unable to assert his authority in the proper time. He can assert it at times, we see, because he does stop the people from eating al-hadam, but he does not do it at the right time. So now we see another war, okay? We see now the next war happens, and Shmuel tells Shaul, God made you king. I'm just looking at the time. Yeah, I think we'll have enough time to do this. God made you king, and now we have to. We have a king. We have to fight Amalek. Okay. So there's a lot of things about why Amalek is so bad. I'm going to just give a short summary of why. Basically, Amalek was the first nation to attack us after Yetziat Mitzrayim, and they are basically the antithesis of what we stand for, because we stand for a connection with God and building a relationship with God. And Amalek basically says, no, you can't really build a relationship with God. And because what gives them the strength and the confidence to fight us right after the Yetziat Mitzrayim? Every nation was scared of us. Every nation said, well, look, God is helping these people. We cannot fight against them. But then Amalek fights us. So they basically say, no, you don't really have such a big connection with God. We're going to fight you. So we have to go fight Amalek. And Shmuel says very explicitly, kita et Amalek v'charamta et kol asher lo. He gives very explicit direction. Destroy everything. Lo tachmol v'amit me'ish v'ad isha me'oler v'ad yonek mishor v'ad seh migama v'ad chamor. Right? Destroy everything. Okay? So if you were Shaul and you had a Gilgal incident, when you didn't listen to exactly what Shmuel said, and you saw that he said you're losing your malchut, you would think he would listen. But again, he does not. He is swayed. And, before that, before the war starts, Shmuel tells the Keni, who's the descendants of Yitro, the father-in-law of Moshe, that they live near Amalek. He tells them to leave so they don't get killed get involved in the battle. And we see the contrast of the evil of Amalek and the greatness, the kindness of the Keni. So we see that the kindness is repaid and they get saved from the war. So now Shmuel tells him, don't have any chamla, don't have any mercy on anything, kill everyone. So he tells him, no, we cannot run. He ends up having mercy on Agag and on the good son, the good son of Bakar, sheep and cows. And when Shmuel, on the night before, God tells Shmuel he did not listen, he's going to lose his malchut. This is from God now, right? Before Shmuel only said it. Then Shmuel comes and tells him, what did you do? And Shmuel says, no, I did what God asked me, right? And he says, no. What do I hear? He tries to give Shaul a chance to redeem himself. And again, he makes excuses, right? He says, no, I saved Agag, so we could kill him and make a spectacle of it. And we wanted to give the korbanot from the son. And he tells him, this is the key line of the whole thing. Halo im katon ata be'enecha rosh shivtei Yisrael ata. If you think you're small in your eyes, then everything's off. You're the head of the Shvatim of Israel. God made you king, and you're not listening, and you're not asserting your authority. You're being swayed by these people. You're telling the people, you're blaming the people. You're saying the people wanted to do it, right? He told the people. And we see that this, Asher Shamati b'kol ha'am, lizboch la'Hashem, like he's making all these excuses. And then Shmuel says, Chafetz la'Hashem ba'olot uzbachim, kishmoa b'kol Hashem. God doesn't want your sacrifices. God wants you to listen to him. He gave you a commandment. Listen to him. And because of this, he says, and finally, Shaul says, Chatati, and I sinned, and come with me and go in front of the nation to kill Agag and make this whole, save face, basically. Shmuel says, no, I'm not going to do this. You did the wrong thing. You lost your malchut. And then Shaul grabs his coat, rips his coat, and it's like a whole crazy scene because Shmuel's like, the way you rip my coat, the way the coat is ripped, is the way your malchut is going to be ripped. And it's totally ripped from you. And it's going to be given to someone better than you. And he says again, Chatati, please come with me. Finally, Shmuel says, I will come with you. And they kill Agag in front of the nation. And Shmuel kills him, not Shaul, which is important in a second why. And they basically, it ends with saying that they never really saw each other again because Shmuel felt so bad about the failure of Shaul. So now two things I want to point out and connect the two wars with is in the first war, right? Shmuel tells him after he doesn't wait in the Gilgal, you lost your malchut for not listening. And here again, he says it, and Shaul seems so much more scared by this, right? He's fighting with him. He's trying to redeem himself. So what's the difference? Is that in the Gilgal, he wasn't listening to the words of the Navi. Here, he didn't listen to the words of Hashem outright, that God commanded this. And because he didn't listen to the words outright of God, of commanding of the killing of the Amalek, he really loses it and he knows there's no more chance of him redeeming himself. There's also mefashim that say that he could have done tshuva after the Gilgal. There was still that opening, but this was the seal that he couldn't do it. This is all too little, too late. He admits that he was wrong, but it doesn't save him. And essentially now we're at the point where right after this, we're going to see next week, we're going to talk about the anointing of David and how David already is being chosen as the next king right after this event. So there's really no turning back at this point, and we're going to see also the people don't know that David is chosen yet. We'll talk about this more next week, but it's going to play out. They have a feeling of what's going to happen throughout, that Shaul's malchut will not be standing. So to sum up, I want to sum up two things as we see that the main failure of Shaul is I think to me is this main pasuk. He had all the potential to be the king, but he did not see it in himself. We see when he had the confidence to do it after the victory, he takes action and he makes the nation do a shvuah that they're not going to eat. And he is able to stop the nation from eating al-hadam. He's able to take the initiative when he feels the confidence that he can. But when he doesn't feel confident and he's afraid and he doesn't have that connection with God, he gets stepped on by the nation and blames the nation and blames others and doesn't take his responsibility. So, and we see in contrast to that, Yonatan, his son, is man of action, a man of faith. We're going to talk about him more as we talk about David as well. He's a very important character. Just to end with a point from Megillat Esther, which I think Esther, in a way, Esther is a descendant of Shaul, right? She's from Binyamin, and Haman is a descendant of Agag, of Amalek. And I feel that this is a tikkun for Shaul's mistake, because what happens? We see in Esther, Magedet Moladeta, ve'ama kasher tziva alea Mordechai, ve'et ma'amad Mordechai Esther osa kasher hayta ve'omenet oto. Esther does not say in the beginning of Megillah, when she marries Ahashverosh, she does not say that she is Yehudi, because Mordechai told her to keep it quiet. And this is a sniut of Esther, waiting for the right time to reveal the information. We spoke about this before, about sniut not only being about clothing, but about revealing at the right time and concealing in order to reveal, to make the biggest impact. And we see here, I bought the bluish Shaul. Shaul, this is the sniut of Shaul that was positive. Right? When it wasn't the time to talk about his malchut, he didn't say it. And then we see with Esther, well, first we see with Shaul, when the Bnei Belial were embarrassing him after he was appointed king, and he should have asserted his authority and not been passive and sanua. It says, Lomin vahi kemacharish. It got cut off there. Kemacharish. And instead, when she's at the turning point in Megillah of what to do with going to Ahashverosh, and it says, And Mordechai, she says, I can't go because he didn't call me. It says, Im charesh tacharishi, right? That same language, macharish, charesh tacharishi. Mordechai says, if you stay quiet now, right? This is also like a Yonatan type of character. Mordechai telling her, God's going to save us. It's not about you, right? It's not about your personal feelings and your personal fears. God's going to save us somehow. But you're going to get lost in the mix if you don't do this. He's telling her essentially what Shaul needed to be told. He's telling her, you have the choice now to act or to not act. You have the choice now to reveal the important information that needs to be revealed at this time, to use a snoo to your advantage and take this information that you concealed and reveal it for the biggest impact. And don't be a macharish and assert your authority as queen, right? He got the malchut, and take on that role fully, right? This is in contrast to Shaul being katon be'enecha, being small in his own eyes. So I think here Esther is a tikkun for Shaul's lacking of confidence in himself and lacking of assertion in the right moments. So this is essentially his downfall. Next week, we're going to talk about the rise of David as Melech, and then all the conflict that he has with Shaul through his life. So I'm sorry for the technical difficulties on the different computer. I hope it was clear. I hope you enjoyed. If there's any questions, I'm here to take any questions. And thank you for coming. And I hope to see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
It was great.
Thank you.